The vertical line test. Recall for y to be a function of x, each x must be paired with only one y. If we take a look at this in kind of a visual sense, I have a couple of examples. So the first example, these are my x's, these will be my inputs. Whoever I wrote first are my inputs. These will be my y's, my outputs. Notice each x is mapped to only one y. Now it happens I didn't use the 9, but each x is mapped to only one y. This gives us the points 1, 4, 2, 5, and 3, 4. And because we use each x only once, we have a function. But let's take a look at the second diagram, where I actually have 3 going to both 1 and 2. And again, I'm assuming those are my x's, those are my y's, inputs and outputs. Since 3 is used twice, since it goes to two different numbers, this is not a function. I'm sure most of you remember the vertical line test. And what you remember is if we were to graph these points, graph these items, that if we can draw a vertical line and every vertical line we draw passes through the graph or touches the graph at most one time, then we have a function. So notice this one's a function. If I were to draw vertical lines, all of those vertical lines pass through the graph only once. This one's not a function because if I drew a vertical line right here, it would pass through 2 points. And I would not, in fact, have a function. So what does the vertical line test say? It says if there is a vertical line which intersects a graph in more than one point, then the graph does not represent the graph of a function. I have 4 examples here. The first one is a function. If I draw any vertical line, it'll pass through once. B, again, if I draw any vertical line, it'll pass through once. But let's take a look at C. C is not a function because I can draw a lot of vertical lines that pass through more than one time. D is one of the tricky situations. This is in fact a function. Sometimes students are pretty clear on this part. It's really what happens in here, and hopefully you remember from your past that this function actually has what's called a vertical asymptote. So these two pieces don't join. And in fact what happens is you just keep getting one intersection, except for along the vertical line where there is no intersection with the graph.